Alan Hamilton again with Pipers'Persuasion, and today's segment, it's on the 9th of August 2010. The subject of this particular recording is Jim Kilpatrick, MBE of House of Edgar, Shotts and Dykehead Pipe Band, and he is the leading drummer there. He has been there for a long number of years, built up a terrific drum corps and contributed greatly to Shotts and Dykehead Pipe Band. He's also a winner of a large amount of drumming prizes and other matters of that ilk. So we shall hear from Jim now as we go through the conversation. Thank you very much. I think we'll start off the interview here for the viewers. We'll talk about your early days in drumming. When did you start learning to play the drum? Who taught you? And so forth, and just give me a wee story about that. Carry on.
Well, I started drumming when I was about 9 or 10, and I was always one for following any of the bands, the brass bands and the pipe bands, the local bands, in Whitburn, where I was born and brought up, Whitburn, West Lothian. Yeah. And it was in the family, of course, because my uncle Tom Brown was already the leading drummer of Whitrig Colliery Pipe Band at that time, as it was known, and then to become Polkemmet. And
is Tom still on the go yet?
Oh, he's still on the go very much. He's
I need to get a hold of him as well, eh?
Oh, you should. For
absolutely. That's interesting historically. So you were through there, and it was interesting times starting at that time. How did it all develop from there?
I think it just develops the way that it develops with anybody else. Yeah. You have an interest, and if it's something that you can get a hold of, then and it gets a hold of you, then you pursue it and enjoy it and keep it going.
Where did you get the impetus for practice? Because a lot of young people start instruments nowadays and they seem to know they're all at it for a few weeks or a couple of months, and then it just drops off after it. What was the driving force there?
Well, I think I felt natural when I played drums when I was younger. I didn't have a problem rhythmically, but like everybody else, I had to learn from the basics and from the very start. But I think the fact that I was in a competitive environment with the pipe band, I think when you're in competition, it helps you to drive forward, and it makes you practice more.
So what grade was that?
Grade 1.
Grade 1? Yeah. Right away, bang, right in there.
Grade 1. Well, when I started 9 or 10, and I was playing in grade 1 when I was 12-year-old.
My goodness.
So there you are.
That's very, very interesting.
Quite young at that.
It is.
Even today's standards.
What size of chord did you play in at that time?
I think it was about... the chords at that time were very much smaller. I think it was 4 or 5.
So no hiding place, eh?
No hiding place at all, no. No, not at all.
Aye. That's interesting, it really is. And how long did that go on for then, that particular situation in your life?
Well, Tom left to join Shotts and Dykehead.
Okay.
No, I think that was 1971. I might be wrong there. I think it was 1971 because I think he won the Worlds. It may have been in Aberdeen, Hazelhead at that time. And that was under Alec Duthart, leading drummer. So, of course, it was always, I think it's everybody's dream to play under Alec and to play with the Shotts corps at that time.
Yes,
then.
yes.
So my aim was always to go and play with Shotts as soon as I thought I was good enough, and I thought I was brave enough to ask Big Alec if there was a slot in his corps. So at 15, I joined Shotts and Dykehead.
That's marvellous. That'd be a wonderful experience for you at that time.
Well, my first competition was in Dam Park in Ayr in 1973.
Yes.
Where the band won the treble. It won the pipe band Grade 1 World Championships. It won the drumming, and we actually also won the drum majors prize that day.
Oh,
so
my goodness. That was all because you joined, eh?
Maybe they were lucky to win because I joined. I was there, but that was my first. My registration hadn't come through. It's quite a funny story. My registration hadn't come through from Polkemmet. And lo and behold, Alec found out on the day that my registration just come through in the post that morning with the secretary. And as soon as he found out, he grabbed me. I wasn't playing at first. Alec basically told me, go and take a walk because I'll catch you later at the march past. And then he came and got me and he says, his words was, he says, Jim, he says, you're in, get your drum. And so you can imagine it was just like a ton of bricks hitting me. And that was it. I went on, we had a couple of runs through. And
can you remember the tunes?
I can. We played, it was a medley. And we played I think it was the Hills of Alva. That was that selection. We played the Hills of Alva. That was the opening tune. I can't remember all the tunes.
No, but that was
the opening tune.
That was the thing, yeah. Did they play the MSR, just for the viewers, the students in amongst them, did they play MSR at that time as well as the medley?
No.
Just a medley?
It was just a medley for the World Championships at that time. For the Worlds it was.
Yeah, that's right, okay. So that's another interesting point that people maybe don't know nowadays. And all these things take years to evolve, don't they?
Sure, it does,
so that was you, 1973?
1973,
And you're still here yet?
Still here, alive and kicking.
Why don't we just discuss the prizes that you've won over the years? Tell the viewers about this, many prizes and the nature of the prizes. Solo prizes.
Solo, I've won 16 World Solo Drumming Championships. And then the Champions, which is no longer held. It was only held every 3 years, and I won that 2 years. So I've won that twice. I won the World Solo Drumming Championship 16 times. Drum corps wise, I've won, I think it's 18 or 19 World Drum Corps Championships.
And of course, if I asked you next stupid questions, how many first prizes you've won drumming wise with pipe bands at even championship events over all these years? That's an impossible figure. I bet you've never counted that.
I try to. I'm up. I think it's, give or take, a few each way. I think it's around 125 major championships. That's including Champion of Champions.
That can never be equalled, I would venture to suggest.
Well,
we'll be waiting a long number of years before anybody approaches anywhere near that. And folk get quite excited and they win one, and why not? What do you attribute this success? How much practice you put in, say, in a week, or in average over these years?
Now I would practice probably around 3 hours a day. That doesn't mean to say I practice 3 hours religiously every day.
No, but
average, I would practice about 3 hours a day now. And but then when I first joined Shotts, from about the age of 14, 15, up until I was about 26, 27, I used to practice about 12 hours a day. That sounds absolutely impossible, but it was. I used to practice 12 hours a day.
Did you ever work for a living?
I tried.
What did you do?
I actually worked down a coal mine.
For goodness sake.
One of the things I used to do was, I was on what you called a ham and egg shift, was between the day shift and the back shift.
Okay.
So it was a very small shift down the coal mine, but it allowed me to get lost down the coal mine. And I used to go down the coal mine and walk about 3 or 4 miles underground, and then go and practice for 4 or 5, 6 hours, and then come back up and practice the night again.
That'd be fantastic. So, that's really good.
Couldn't do that now, then.
You're in this drum corps of Alec Duthers. Now, how long was Alec with you then when you were in? I know he was there before, but when you were in the drum corps, how long did you play with Alec?
I started in '73 and I played through to 1979. And then I went back to Pokemon to be leading drummer for the first season in 1980.
Oh, right. So, and Duthert was still there when you went to Pokemon?
Yep.
That's interesting. Yep. Right. So how did you go on with Pokemon then?
Fine. We built the band. Robert Matheson, we both came from Shotts to take over Pokemon.
Okay.
And we built the band up fine. It was in the, get into the top 2 or 3.
It was well known there, and it was quite adventurous and did a lot of good stuff.
Yeah.
So, is this a beginning of your collaboration with Rob Matheson and how to make the pipe band sound as a pipe band, not as two separate units?
Well, we're probably collaborating a wee bit before that, but as joint leaders, that was the start of our leadership relationship, if you want.
So what's your views on picking tunes then for the pipe band?
I think, to be honest with you, the ensemble plays a big part in the Shotts medley in particular, and we've always been known for pushing the boundaries.
Yeah.
And we've always been known for playing rhythmical tunes, upbeat tunes, and catchy tunes. So you know, we just took it from there, and we were never scared to take chances musically. Okay.
Having said that, were there any sort of tunes or time signatures that you avoided, like the plague?
No, we didn't avoid anything. In fact, we would embrace them.
Aye, so you went looking for the unusual, really?
The unusual just came to us. It was just something that when you compose and when you put stuff together, you know, sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't work.
And the other comment that's made by various people in the pipe band world or out with the band world is that some of the tunes that pipe bands play are not very musical. You don't particularly want to hear them again, you wouldn't buy the record, this sort of thing. You got any views on that aspect?
I have a theory that if you hear a tune and a few hours later you can hum that tune or you can whistle that tune or part of the tune or the nucleus of the tune, then it's a decent tune. If you can remember it after hearing it for the first time or remember part of it, then there's something in that tune melodically that strikes a note with you.
So that's what you really were taking to the pot with Kilpatrick.
Aye, it was very much in Kilpatrick.
Aye.
We played a lot of melodic tunes in Kilpatrick.
That's excellent. And did you attract quite a big chord at that particular time?
In Kilpatrick, the biggest chord I would have played would have been 10. I was the first guy ever to play 10 snare drummers and win a championship with it at the same time.
And the tenor drummers, were they to the fore, or did you have many tenor drummers, or just the usual couple on the bass?
We started off with the usual couple on the bass, but it's quite funny that I remember going from 2 tenor drummers to 3 tenor drummers, and then I went to 4 tenor drummers.
Okay.
And I remember people saying, 4 tenor drummers? That'll never take on. And then it did. And then I went to 5 tenor drummers. Same thing. People said 5 tenor drummers. That'll never fly. And then I took to 6. Then I played 7 tenor drummers.
My goodness.
And now I've got 6 tenor drummers and actually playing 2 bass drummers. So I believe we're not the first band in the world to play 2 bass drummers. But
well, you've mentioned the 2 bass. Might as well talk about it. Why?
Because the bass, we were playing bigger tenor drums, like 22-inch tenor drums.
Right.
And we were putting them on a note that was just almost sitting perfect.
Right.
But the projection of a bass drum and the way that it goes outside the circle and its relationship with the other bass drum, we just put a bass drum on A and a bass drum on G.
Right.
And then but the 2 bass drummers never play at the same time.
No.
There's only one bass drum plays, and when it's the appropriate time to play, they'll play. And when it's not, they'll not.
So one stays silent and the other one kicks in?
Of course. It's seamless. The whole thing is a seamless bass line. And
do you have any thoughts on the flow of music when you're playing?
Well, these guys are
again, for a student, how important is flow in music?
Oh, it's got to flow. Music has got to flow. It's got to. I mean, you've got to be disciplined in the tempo. And if there's something there that disrupts the tempo and disrupts the flow of the band, then
it's a simple question, but it's, as you well know, it's one that's ignored countless times by performers.
Yeah.
And yet it's extremely important that it's brought out. Right. And another question.
We didn't have to work on the flow. The flow was there before. Because these guys, you know, one of the bass drummers was a tenor drummer and a great bass drummer at the same time.
Yeah. And generally speaking, I had a discussion, and foolishly, with a drummer, and I said, well, drummers should be limited to a maximum of 6 sides, a couple of tenors and a bass. But I'm a piper, that's why I took that view. And of course, he goes on to destroy me with discussion of dynamics, and it must be one of your pupils. Anyway, could you explain to viewers why there's not too much volume there with so many drummers when you're playing and matching the pipe corps? How does all this just fit in without being overbearing?
Well, one of the things is, if you play 5 snare drummers, and then you play 10 snare drummers, it doesn't double the volume. And it's the same if you play 10 pipers, and then you play 20 pipers. You're not playing twice the volume, believe it or not. You think you are, but you're not.
Could you explain that to me?
It's just the way, the nature of the instrument.
Yeah.
I can be I can be overpowering with 5 snare drummers if I wanted to be. I played 5 snare drummers for many years, and it was probably as loud as any other drum corps in the park.
Yeah.
So, but the thing you got to do is, it's like the music. It's a balance. You create a balance. You can't have everybody playing at maximum volume if you've got 10 or 12 snare drummers there. So you play according to the number of pipers you've got. The bass and the tenor drums, they also amalgamate with the snare drums, and it's a balance with the volume.
Forgive it a piper's question. Is it a question of not hitting the drum so hard, or is it a question of setting up the drum, or is it both?
Well, it's how you apply what you're playing. But also, you've got to mind that we're not playing with 8 and 9 pipers anymore either. You're playing with 20 odd pipers. So the snare drum section has doubled, but so has the pipe section.
It's a huge
all
band.
relevant. It's a big band.
Against a couple of decades ago, we're into the 40s now.
That's right.
It's a bendy buses to get folk to a
That's
competition.
Right. Double deckers. Exactly.
How do you write for these folk? How do you write for the tunes, and how do you teach the people to play?
First of all, I don't teach the people. If I need to teach the people, they shouldn't be there.
Okay.
The people have to play and be able to play well enough to capture everything that I'm playing. I would rather say that I advise them and guide them how to play. So I would construct a drum score rhythmically, put it down in the music, and I construct it in a way that would hopefully enhances the melody. Some melodies don't have a lot of rhythm in them, and it's a lot of melody. And then when you add rhythm into it, it completely transforms the tune. And sometimes tunes don't need a lot of rhythm, and it's up to the leading drummer. What I do is I look at the tune, and I listen to it, and I listen to it, and I listen to it, and then I decide what I can do. If it needs a lot more rhythm, I build a rhythm into it. If it doesn't actually need too much rhythm, I will play around the melodic theme of the tune. So you do a bit of both.
And I trust that over all the years, you and the pipe major talk.
All the time.
And you discuss the wee problems, the toing and froing with the pipes and drums, conflicts, perceived conflicts. And isn't this part of the pipe band game?
It's really funny. I have had very, if ever, I'm trying to think, I would count on the one hand in all the years that I've been leading drummer that I've discussed a conflict with the pipes and the drums. What we have discussed is ways of taking it from where we are and maybe building more ensemble, maybe building a little bridge here and there. Maybe sometimes Robert, for instance, would hear things in the drumming where he might say to me, maybe you shouldn't play there. And I went, all right, okay, fine. It used to be years ago, if a pipe major said to me, oh, just sit out for a couple of bars, it would also almost be offensive.
Yeah.
To be told that.
Yeah.
But now
that's why I raise it, because obviously it's fine over all the years with Shotts, because the results prove that. But there are pipers and drummers watching, and they say, well, you know, we need to do something about this, and that's why I'm trying to draw this out, how it can be done.
Sure.
It seems the simplest thing in the world, but yet it doesn't happen. Pride seems to get in the way sometimes, you know.
Isn't that the case?
So life suddenly becomes difficult. But
if you talk, it doesn't need to be difficult. That's, I think that's the one thing that a pipe major and leading drummer has to do. A, they have to be musically on the same page, but then they can discuss things together, and both of them don't need to agree with each other, but each has to respect each other's opinions and actually give each other a listen. And that's what we had and always have had, me and Robert, as an understanding that we're not doing this for our own egos. We're doing this for the good of the band, for the ensemble of the band. And that's how it comes out. I think it comes out that way anyway.
I'm quite sure it does. Because Shotts have always pulled themselves through with ensemble and with drumming. And really,
well,
that's the basis of a good pipe band. You can't just be trying to win because you've got a pipe corps.
Two units.
There's too many folk have died quickly because of that.
As long as you've got one set of judges judging piping, another set of judges judging drumming, then you're always going to get one that's going to be in front of the other. Hopefully the idea is to have both at the very top. But if you can be strong in both elements, then you've got a fair chance.
Which leads us quite neatly onto the question of the judges and judging in general. I've got a view, the Brigads in Brittany, for instance, they've got 13 judges and judging performances of some 11 minutes. And I just wish we could scrape up enough quality judges and enough money to pay them that we could get them all on the field at one time and maybe do away with the perceived bias. I say perceived, unquote, because sometimes it's just they don't, pipe majors and their bands don't realise how bad they were. They like to think they were better than everybody else, despite the fact they never heard anybody else on the day. But I'd like to hear your views briefly on that aspect of the judging thing, how you see it.
Well, you mentioned the judges, in particular the judge of Brigads in Brittany, and you mentioned a number of 13 judges. I don't even know if we would have them. I don't even know if we would have 13 judges.
That's what I'm saying.
That's dare I say, capable or enlisted with the RSPBA as unattached judges.
Well, I think the way the Brigads do it is maybe say 2 for bombards, 2 for piping, 2 for drumming, 2 for presentation, and 1 for the odd accordion that one's on and all this sort of stuff.
Sure, I understand.
But it seems to work because everybody in the audience seems to pick the prize list at the same time as the judges do. And
well, first of all, the judges that I play in front of in every major championship are the same judges year in and year out.
Yes.
They rotate, but they rotate around about five competitions. So every year you're likely to 98% likely to get the same judge at one of the 5 major championships. And the same with the solos. It's the same judges that judge all the time. We don't have a big enough pool. I feel we don't have a big enough pool of judges.
How do you overcome that?
You get young guys in.
Yeah.
And you get rid of all this nonsense that you've got to be unattached. I know you can't judge in major championships when you're attached to a band, and I think that's right. But I don't see any young judges being pushed through. And I think there's lots of younger guys. I don't mean youngsters, but there's lots of guys who have played quite recently. I think could easily go on there and they would. I think they would make a great job of judging. And I don't see them being put onto it.
Do you see any future in people with musical degrees in piping and what have you been fed through the system. Is drumming, contributing to this musical degree it's going on?
Supposed to be. I don't see any evidence of it yet.
Well, that's why I'm asking.
I teach in the Royal School of Music, and I've put people through BA degrees in pipe and snare drumming. But it seems to be that unless you go through the judging certification process and training process, which is important in one hand, but on the other hand, if they don't actually hold any seminars or any certification exams, then they're not going to bring any judges in.
Well, that's a good point for the future. Somebody take note, please.
I hope so. I mean, it won't affect me, but at the end of the day...
No, but we've got to solve this problem of judging. It seems everybody out in that field...
Biased, you'll never get rid of.
No, but it seems everybody out in that field are 60 or 70 years of age, and God bless them, you know. And I could say that because I'm 67 myself, so
you know something? But there's good 60-year-olds and there's not so good 60-year-olds. It's the same with the youngsters as well.
It's a young man's game, and maybe the perception would be better if young guys were taking part in the adjudication. So let's see what happens about that in the future. Are you going to be a referee later, a judge or whatever later on?
I don't know. I would love to judge, but you know, I right now I'm playing and
enjoying it.
And enjoying it.
Yes.
And you know, if the association or anybody in the RSPBA thinks my experience or knowledge is worthwhile capturing later on, then we'll talk.
Right. Tell me about your business in drumming, Jim Kilpatrick Percussion. Tell me all about that. Well,
I was full-time with a drum company for 25 years, and I started to develop some of my own products like drumsticks, snare drum harnesses, and then I just eventually one day just said, that's it, I'm going to go and I'm going to do my own thing. So I started off Jim Kilpatrick Percussion Limited, and initially developing drumsticks and selling drumsticks along with my own snare drum harnesses that were made in America. And then I was taken on by Remo, which is the biggest head company in the world, as a designer of drum heads and an endorsee as well. So now I help design drum heads, and I've got a bigger range of sticks, snare drum harnesses, and I sell all pipe band equipment, and I sell wholesale and I sell retail. It's a great. I wish I had done it 30 years ago. And we always say that. But
where are you based? And is it internet? Tell them about that.
Well, the company's.
How do people contact?
The company's basically internet based, but I have a network, a world network of dealers that deal through me and buy the products, and I have an office out in Lanarkshire, and that's we deal, 24 hours a day from the office, and we deal direct with bands who approach us for equipment, and also retail businesses that buy my product. So I've tried to design a brand, the Jim Kilpatrick brand of percussion. So
based on your experience through all the years.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I know it feels right. I know it sounds right. And I know it looks right. So.
Absolutely fantastic. Now, I feel we're almost at the end of the interview, and always ask interviewees, is there something I maybe haven't touched on you would like to express at this time? Is there anything, any subject, aspect?
I'll tell you what's important to me is freedom of music, freedom to express yourself musically without having barriers that you have to break down. I mean, we all have to break down barriers to move forward. If we didn't, we'd still be playing with rope tension snare drums and calf heads, for instance, and pipe band drumming. So I just, youth is very important. The youth of today is obviously, I know it's a cliche, but the youth of today is the future.
Yeah.
And I think we should encourage the youngsters to play. Once the youngsters get it in their blood, it's there to stay, and they'll have it for years, and they'll pass it on to their kids. But freedom of musical expression and being allowed to grow and take the music forward. Get out of a circle. Get into a concert-based way of playing so that we can actually present the music properly to the audience. Stop playing to people with your back to people.
Of course.
Face the people.
Face your audience.
Face your audience.
Oh, absolutely, yeah.
And play and have a constructed setup where maybe you bring in other instruments. I would love to see more instruments being introduced into the pipe band scene as well.
Music and presentation's everything, isn't it?
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Jim, thanks very much for your
Thank
time
you, sir.
today.
Pleasure.
All the best.
Thank you.